Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening all around the world, wherever you are. I am happy that you're here with us for Blogging Warfare today as we talk to the fantastic Anthony Bencomo from Deli Fresh Threads. We're going to talk sandwiches, we're going to talk branding, we're going to talk blogging, and it should be a really good half hour. But in the meantime, let's say hello to our wonderful co-hosts. We'll start across the pond with Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Carolyn. Thank you very much for the intro. And as always, I want to say hello to our ever-expanding global audience, wherever you may be in this big old world of ours. It's great that you can take 30 minutes to join in with us this Saturday. And our very special guest, Mr. Anthony Biggie Bencomo, who we've just discovered, or he's just discovered that he's shared a bit of a past with me, as I also have a little bit of a history with t-shirts, which we may elaborate on a little bit more. But what we're definitely going to elaborate a lot more on is Biggie and his branding prowess. But I'll throw it back to Carolyn first.
Fantastic. And instead of across the pond, right down the road from Anthony and me, Thomas, how are you doing?
I am fantastic, Carolyn. Sitting here with my holy mug. Can you see that? Right there.
Oh man.
My mug here full of hot coffee, so I can sit here and have something to sip on as we reflect on the beauty of sandwiches and t-shirts and the branding that brings them all together with the man of the hour. So I'll hand it right on back to you, Carolyn.
It should be a lot of fun to talk, and I actually brought a friend with me today. This is Biggie Bread, and he is going to be helping me introduce his friend, Biggie the human being. Biggie from Deli Fresh Threads. He is here with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. I really appreciate it.
We're very, very glad to have you. It should be a good show today. So let's dive right in. How did you get started with Deli Fresh Threads? It's a very, very unique brand. So tell us all about it.
So I guess with not making it the super long version of the story, I guess, is I'm obsessed with sandwiches. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I'm obsessed with sandwiches. I eat a sandwich pretty much every day, sometimes maybe more than one a day. And
if it's a good day, it's a good day.
It's definitely a good thing. Actually, it's funny because the most Americans eat 193 sandwiches a year. That's like the average number, and obviously I think I double that. But the big thing for me was I wanted to do something that I always get told. I'm a big fan of a brand called, I used to do a college brand called Nightmare Apparel. I wanted something to do something for my school. No one else did anything for my university, and I was kind of ahead of my time with a few others, and we kind of did it. And I had a full-time job, and I did it on the side, and I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite things to do. It made me happy. Even though I didn't really make much money off of it, I just loved the creative process of it. It's one of those things when you go to school, you want to do what you study, supposedly, or do what you love. I was a marketing major, and I really didn't get my day job. I guess my Clark Kent job is not doing marketing. I do HR, so it's like a little bit more process-driven, and I wanted to use my creativity. And I always noticed that I kept on going to sandwiches, but I didn't want to open a restaurant, because I wanted to do something that gave me some flexibility. So at the end, what it ended up coming out was I had a love for t-shirts since I used to do it, and I love sandwiches. And then I was like, well, how can I mix it together? And and at the time I was a big Johnny Cupcakes fan, and he was a big inspiration, saying, do what makes you happy. So I basically was like, you know what? This makes me happy. I love sandwiches. I wear t-shirts. I live in Florida. Why not make my own clothing brand? So that's kind of how it started.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. Rob, you want to kick off the questioning?
Well, it's more just kind of to make a point on what Biggie just said there. And I was reading your about page a little bit earlier, and you had a lovely line. And you said, you wanted to start. You wanted to start a brand dedicated to your love of sandwiches. And I think that, to a degree, is like the secret formula, or the secret sauce of what is required in the perfect formula to having a blog or a brand or a business that's going to have some longevity. And if for our ever-expanding global audience who tune in regularly, you've probably heard us going on and on about this like broken records. But if you don't actually love what you do, if you're not knowledgeable about it, and if you don't have the the commitment to stick with it, you probably won't succeed in this. And so, like Biggie, you have it in a nutshell there. So I just kind of want to applaud that and, you know, take a moment to bask in the glory. But also, beyond that, you do another thing that I think is very, very nice, and I think that also has some parallels, and I'd be curious to see what you do online to try and mimic what you do offline so well. So I see when you send out a t-shirt to a customer, you also include a nice little handwritten note, a special sticker, and so they're kind of, you know, it's kind of to make yourself a bit more memorable, to stand out from the crowd. It's kind of like what Seth Godin was on about being the purple cow and being different so that you're somewhat remarkable. What can you do, or what do you do in the online world that some of our, you know, our bloggers or people who are paying attention are watching this show, and what could they do online to try stick and be a bit more memorable, or what do you do online?
So I think for me a lot of it was because I love the whole idea of the entrepreneurship and coming up with the branding aspect of it. And so since starting off, even though I had a marketing degree, I kind of, you know, they teach you the academic world, but I wanted the real world aspect of it. An author that I love, that I read quite a bit of. I don't read many books, but the books that I do read quite a bit of a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, is who I read a lot of. And the two big things that I read was obviously one was Crush It, which is a book that, you know, even if you don't, it's a great read. And I joke around because I tell folks, even if you just go to the bookstore and go to the very back of the book, there's actually cliff notes, like the top 20 or 50 things to do. And the big thing is obviously, you know, when it comes to branding, is become a subject matter expert. And so that was one of the big aspects of it. And the other thing that he had in another book, because he's had like 3 books, was another one called, it's called like Jab, 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 Right Hook. And the premise of the book is, you know, brands tend to just ask and ask. So they basically ask for the hook, which is buy, buy, buy. Well, for me, my big thing was I wanted to be known as a subject matter expert. So, and if you look at chefs, what do chefs do? They share their knowledge. They give their knowledge. Heck, they even show you how they make the food, but guess what? You still buy their products. You still go to their restaurants. You do all those things. So because of that, I basically go the route of trying to do the same thing. I love Twitter. It's one of my favorite things to do because of the fact that I can interact with people. I get to meet people. I get to learn about them. A lot of them, you know, they start thinking about me as sandwiches, so they start sending me things like, hey, did you see this? And so you have that interaction. So between that and then just giving little tidbits of little things that I can share to be more personal with them, I think it kind of does that. Because obviously, you know, Twitter and online, it's a black hole. You don't know where you're at. You're throwing stuff out there, and you don't know what you're going to get back. So the more personal you become your brand, the more you actually get back, because then people then start relating to you and realizing that you're just not, you know, especially me, like I'm a one person. I joke around. I'm me, myself, and Biggie Bread are basically my brand because I do everything here. You know, so because of that, I think it's so important to be able to show that personal side of the brand, and then a lot of that comes down with the interaction part of it.
And you really have. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, it's just kind of one quick follow-on question, because you mentioned Twitter there, and I'd be curious to see how they actually use Twitter, because maybe some of our listeners might get some ideas as how they could kind of adopt that to their own practice or their own business. So are you kind of polling and listening for tweets of people talking about sandwiches, or are you going like directly for the big guns like the Jimmy Fallons or whatever, or what's your approach to Twitter?
I kind of do it all. I kind of do a little bit of everything. A lot of it comes down to based on the time aspect of it. I have a full-time job. I'm a dad. I pick up my kid, so it's like I have a few hours. So it's figuring out ways of doing it. Now, I'm very big into the idea of being the personal side of things. So I try to do a mixture of everything, where I do everything from, I do schedule tweets, but I schedule tweets for things that are basically help spread things out. You know, little quotes and little fun facts. The other thing is I use scheduled tweets to do, you know, kind of like in case you missed it. Because there's, you know, Twitter in that aspect, it's like a river, just constantly flowing. So you got to basically be able to repeat yourself, you know, quite a bit. So one of the big things that I usually like to do, and I learned this from Guy Kawasaki, was every 8 hours he posts his tweets. So what I'll sometimes do is I'll schedule my tweets, and I'll use old blog posts to kind of give them, revitalize them. And then I also do little fun things like that. But I also use the search feature. Of this, you know, when it comes to Twitter, I use that to then it's about, you know, Twitter's basically eavesdropping on someone, and in many ways, you're listening to other people's conversations. So what I'll sometimes do is I'll use Twitter. I'll do a search. It could be anything. It could be, I'll sometimes use my own brand since I know I have like a cheesesteak and a fluffernutter and an Italian beef. I'll do searches on people talking about that, and then I'll have conversation with them. The key is I have conversation with them. I sometimes do the occasional like, hey, if you like Italian beef, check out mine. But sometimes I'm interacting with folks, like I'll have people go, oh, I just dropped my sandwich. And then I just say, oh, moment of silence, because I want to have the interaction where I want to show that I'm real and that I'm not just spamming you. And that's really the key. And I know that I know when I'm doing it right because I've had people actually write blog posts about me because they thought it was spam. And as we're interacting, they realize, like, no, this guy just is obsessed. He's a little crazy with it, and he just basically wants to interact with everybody.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's great to hear because I used to do the exact same thing back in the day when I was kind of man and lady umbrella. And there's nothing better than when you're kind of in the eavesdropping mode, if you want to use the euphemism for it, really. But when you actually get a conversion off the back of it, and you make some new followers and friends, and kind of its social footprint just ripples out. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, and instead for people who are selling products out there, if you kind of play the cards right, and if you're a little bit not sneaky, not stealthy, but just as Biggie said, if you're upfront and honest and human about it, you can really get some, you can leverage that to get some sales big time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, look at this. We've got someone out in the audience who's wearing their Deli Fresh Threads Biggie Bread T-shirt right now.
Jason O is sporting the Deli Fresh Threads goodness. There he is up there, which actually raises a lot
of my sandwich eat-ups.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Jason actually attends a lot of my sandwich eat-ups as well.
Yeah, I want to ask about those sandwich eat-ups in a minute, but because I think those are a fantastic thing that you're doing, and we can learn a lot from. I'm going to come back to that, but I did want to ask. We talked a little bit in the green room, very briefly, about how surprised you were with some of the ways that this is connected with people, because this is still, you were saying, this is still a fairly fresh brand. This is still fairly new.
Yeah.
Did you expect the type of response that people got to this, or were you intending to gear towards that? Because I'll tell you myself, I love sandwiches. I like T-shirts. There is no part of my brain that processes the idea of creating a business around T-shirts that talk about sandwiches. Like that would never have come to my head. But you have infused this entire brand with a vitality and a life that kind of blows my mind. So so this is a two-part question. First of all, did you expect the type of visibility that this got? And secondly, why do you think people have connected with what you're doing so strongly?
So for me, the big thing with Deli Fresh Threads was it's definitely I call it a passion project. It's like my hobby. It's my passion. So I think for me, I really didn't know what to expect, if people were going to like it or not like it. I did know, though, that when I started this, it wasn't one of those things where I said, okay, I'm going to start it, and I turned on the lights, and that was it. I basically almost went a full year before I even had a product. I was a full year doing everything from research. I have a journal that I basically use, and I write all my ideas in, and I basically just would write everything down. Between that and my phone, I wrote everything I could possibly think of, because I knew of one thing. If I was going to get into the clothing and food industry, one, I didn't want people to be like, oh, you like this brand, you're imitating this brand. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be my own brand. So because of that, I did a lot of research on what I wanted to do, what I wanted to write, what I wanted, what was everything going to be about, my branding, my packaging, everything. So for me, it was one of those where, like, I felt that everyone loves sandwiches and everyone wears T-shirts. So it made sense to me, but at the same time, my wife thought I was a little crazy. I mean, she looked at me. She goes, "Really? You're gonna do what? You're gonna open a sandwich shop?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna sell shirts that are sandwiches." She's like, "What kind of sandwiches?" And I'm like, "All sandwiches." And so because of that, that was really it was a leap of faith. And I basically was like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this right, and I'm gonna pick the right quality of product, because I got really into the whole indie brand thing, and I started following other brands, and I started asking other people that I respected what their thoughts were, because it's a really, I mean, let's be honest, I'm a 1 in a million, one of 100,000 brands. Anyone can create a brand and create their own t-shirt company. So the hardest part for me is I know I'm in an infant stage. I've started this January of 2013. So I mean, I'm 2 years old. Biggie Bread turned 2 in January. So for me, I'm still not wrapping my brain around how it's picking up. But I also know that I'm very infant. Like if you look at my numbers, and I know you're not supposed to just rely on Twitter numbers and stuff like that. But I'm like, I look at other brands and I notice that I'm not as grown or as big. And so therefore, you have expectations. Everyone wants to grow and run. Everyone wants things to happen quickly. But for me, like this, since I love this so much, I think people see it, and I think that's one of the big things. I think people read it and they see that when they interact with me and they know me, because I basically am being true to what I love. And I think if you're true to yourself and you're true to what your passion is, then you actually can do it that way. I mean, that's the reason why I kind of spin my favorite thing on my blog is what's your favorite sandwich.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
And the reason I do that is because, let's be honest, how much can I write about, 1, my shirts, and 2, about sandwiches? There's a lot you can write about, but not something that you can consistently write about. So you need to also go outside, I guess, outside of the bread, and you need to kind of look and see what else is out there that you can incorporate that kind of connects, because it's all about the branching and the branding of everything. Everything's supposed to connect. That's the number one thing. Everything connects, and if they do not connect, then guess what? Stop and rethink to see how you can make it connect.
I think, yeah. Yes, it really is. Go ahead, Thomas. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that's huge. That connection point, and this is something we haven't really talked about a lot on here before. But it is something when I sit down with people that are either hiring me as a consultant or clients and things like that. One of the things that constantly is driven forth is, why do you have these different channels and how do they interact? And that's bigger than saying, okay, I have Twitter and I have Facebook, and if you're on Facebook, I'm going to ask you to follow me on Twitter, and if you're on Twitter, I'm going to ask you to follow me on Facebook, because that just ticks people off. But figuring out how do the efforts that I'm putting in one place interact with the efforts that I'm putting in all these other places, or do I just have sort of independent outposts over here, which creates a lot of energy but not a lot of return on that. And you actually capitalize on a lot of that in unique ways. One, I really enjoyed your sandwich question, because I've noticed that you have a lot of times where you actually reach out to celebrities and ask them what their favorite sandwich is, and you get responses from them, and you put together post write-ups about the sandwich, the celebrity, and the intersection of those, which I think really connects people in interesting ways online. You also have this sandwich eat-up that you mentioned a moment ago, which helps build those relationships, because you seem to be very relationship-oriented. So what can you teach us about the marriage of relationship building in what you're doing, connecting what you're doing on social media and blogging with what you're doing in real life?
So I know you guys had Bess on a few months ago concerning from Florida BlogCon. Now, that's one of the big things that I wanted to take part of it, because even though I blog because of my business, and I know it's an important aspect of my business to be able to blog, because it's the whole interaction aspect of it. You're constantly providing content, which obviously is good for SEO stuff, but then it's a lot easier to be able to write about different things and than just constantly writing about the same thing that what your product's about and what it's about. People want to be able to know that you're actually, they want to get information from you. That's really what the idea of the internet is. So for me, one of the big things that I learned was one of the first times that I went to Florida BlogCon was about meeting people offline, creating and establishing a relationship online and offline. And one of the big things that I learned as soon as I went, the light bulb lit on. It was September, and I was by November I'm doing a sandwich eat up, and I started just going crazy Googling, because the thing is, everyone asks me, since they know I love sandwiches, the first thing they ask is, what's your favorite sandwich? Where do you go get a sandwich? So I was like, you know what? I'm like, forget this. I'm like, why don't we just have a sandwich together? And so that's the reason why I created it, because, and I don't even sell my merchandise at these events. Like some people maybe listen to me and be like, what is wrong with you? And for me, there's aspects of me that I'm sometimes, as a business major, maybe even think like, what is wrong with me? Like, am I kind of dumb? Like, why aren't I capitalizing on this? But the reason I'm not is I feel like everything happens for a reason. And the whole premise of me doing my sandwich eat-ups is really like a few things. One, I want to interact with people. I really want people to see this passion. And the only way you can see it sometimes is one-on-one. The other aspect of it is I want to support small business, because I think it's very important. A lot of small businesses don't get it. Like, they don't understand that my event is really me showcasing them and me using them to tell people, hey, I like this place to eat. Why don't you go visit it? And then a lot of times these places don't come back and be like, oh, we should tell people about Deli Fresh Threads and Biggie, because he's, we kind of help each other out. And that's an aspect that's obviously very difficult. But then again, that's the reason why a lot of these small businesses don't have social media and use you guys a lot of times, because they don't grasp it. They're not understanding it. So for me, the big thing was I wanted to create something where a lot of the people that go to my sandwich eat-ups, they don't have them. They never even bought anything from me. And you know what? I put no pressure on them, and I don't want to put any pressure on them, because the cool thing is this: the first thing they usually will tell their friends is, "Hey, have you been to Biggie's Sandwich Eat-Up? They're so awesome. Deli Fresh Threads does them." And then automatically, it becomes word of mouth, and those people then start telling other people, and then they start hearing that stuff, and then they realize that I'm not being that guy force feeding you that sandwich of like, here's my shirt, wear my shirt, and like, as much as I one day have the goal of walking into one of my sandwich eat-ups and everyone's wearing something Deli Fresh Threads, that is my ultimate goal. I mean, it is. I mean, I know, because I see people that do events, and I want to do so many other little things, but sandwich eat-ups were like the perfect consistent thing where I can help other people. I spread it around so other people can come, anyone can attend, and it's just a quick little gathering. You eat some sandwiches, get to meet other people, and I even tell people, I'm like, because they're like, oh, my schedule doesn't work, I can't make it to your event. I just say, well, go to my site and check out all the places I've been to. I've been to 15 of them so far. I'm like, and then just check one of those places out. I'm like, you're guaranteed to like it, and you're going to have a great time enjoying and supporting a small business.
And they really are fun. I will say I've been to, 3 or 4 myself, and it's a blast, and such good sandwiches. Oh my gosh, such good sandwiches everywhere. I can't wait for the next one at it's the Meatball Shop, right?
Yeah, Meatball Shop. Yep, March 9th. Meatball Shop.
That's gonna be a good time, definitely. And they've been a meaningful way to, like you said, both get to know local businesses, get to know local people, and bring it all together. So they really are wonderful. Looks like we've got a question here, don't we, Tom?
We do. Roxanne Davenport. She wants to know your opinion, because you do some fantastic stuff with blogging, I know. But she wants to know what is everyone's idea about ending your blog in a question, not a simple what do you think or what would you do, but a question to make them think. And I guess she was posting that to everybody on the panel. So have at it.
Well, I'd say it can go both ways. If it's too much of a ponder and too pensive, plunges them into too pensive a thought, then they may not respond at all. So I'd say you kind of want to balance it so that you don't ask a question that's too hard or too much of a cog turner. Give them something that might be able to answer, be able to engage with. But it would be very kind of dependent on the topic of the blog as well. You don't want to get something that's completely separate from what the blog is about. So that would be kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with that. I think actually Biggie's "What's your favorite sandwich?" kind of question is a great example of the kind of question that actually gets responses. I know, I don't think he's too big on Google Plus anymore, but Jesse Wadillo was an influencer who I saw built most of his following and most of his engagement off of simple questions like that, the kind of questions that anyone can answer because everyone knows their answer. Like if you ask me right now what my favorite sandwich is, I would tell you it's grilled cheese with bacon. Bam, done, easy answer. and I can tell stories about it, and I can tell you where I got my favorite one, and I can tell you how I like to make it and all kinds of different things about it. But there's, I think, questions like that that are easy to answer are a good way to go when you can. Sometimes it's not always relevant, but in a lot of cases it does work. Biggie, I was wanting to ask you kind of what were your thoughts in creating the branding that you've put together for yourself with creating Biggie bread and all the different other aspects. And as a side to, as a kind of a corollary to that question, how did you come up with your latest t-shirt concept? Because what you've been doing, as far as I've seen, is going through different cities and making representative t-shirts for them. And I'm going to be ordering the Fluffinetta one soon, by the way. Baseball season's coming up, and the Red Sox fan in me needs something. So.
Yeah, apparently.
So for me, I think what I basically did was I thought to myself, okay, well, if I'm doing sandwiches, what are some aspects of it that I need to do? And to be honest, like for a long time, the biggest thing for me was I had all these designs and ideas. I just really couldn't come up with a name. And the big reason for that is because a few years ago, the word fresh was overused for everything. And I didn't want to use the word fresh. And so, but then I started noticing every time I went to a deli, it would say Deli Fresh, or it would say Fresh Deli. And then I was like, you know what? It just kind of clicked. And then when I started thinking of everything that goes with like the packaging aspects of it, I started thinking of like, okay, well, I want people to think that like I'm a mixture of business / like mom making you a sandwich. So I would do little questions. I would ask little questions to my friends before they even knew I was doing this. And I would just say, hey, what did your mom pack for you when you were a kid? Because I kind of wanted to see what other people had and what their thoughts, because I kind of wanted to have a little bit of that reminiscence when you're opening it up. But then at the same time, I kind of like the idea of the deli side where you kind of have like the little deli note and the receipts and all that stuff. So what I did was I kind of blended them together to kind of make it that way. So I have like all my shirts are wrapped like a sandwich, but they're wrapped like the sandwich that they represent. So a perfect example would be, so a cheesesteak. A cheesesteak is wrapped round. And a Cuban is wrapped like a Cuban sandwich, so it's flat and square. But then you also may have another one.
God, I'm getting hungry.
Where it actually looks like a square sandwich, like you would pack it. And so what I do is I wrap everything up and I pack it so it looks like you're getting it from a deli. It's got a sticker. It's got like the whole masking tape thing aspect of it. And then I bag it up in a regular paper bag, simple branding. I put my logo on it with a stamp. And then I use everything from like all the little details. Like I then mix it up where I have like a little clip bag, a little chip bag that has, I call my buttons chips. So I put like a chip in there. I put in a sticker, a business card, and all those little things. And the reason I do that is because a lot of brands don't. A lot of people don't do that. They just put it in a bag and mail it out. And guess what? I want the experience. And that's really been the hardest transition for me in my infant stage. On how do I give that experience? I can give this experience now online because people, when they buy it, they open up a bag and they get something like this. They get like a bag. They open up the box, and when they open up a box, they get one of these. And they open up and they actually pull out a sandwich in a bag. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to give that whole experience. So as you can see here, someone had ordered something. I write their name, and I do a little Biggie, and I leave them a note, and I try to make it personalized. Why? Because I'm small. I'm a small brand. I want to always be able to keep that. I want to explode and be so busy that I don't know what the heck to do with myself, but I'm always going to have that personal aspect of it, because I think that's the key when people have that correlation and that connection. And so, yeah, a lot of people think it's like a waste that I'm putting stickers and I'm putting little handwritten notes, but you know what? I really don't care. To be honest, I don't care, because this is my brand, and I get to do it the way I want to do it, and this is how people remember me. People remember these little things, the napkins that are stamped. So you have to figure out what's your niche, what is it that you love, and then how can you personalize it so people can relate and correlate it back to you.
And I have to argue with anyone who says that kind of attention to detail is not a good idea. I mean, maybe not always from a logistics standpoint, but you've put so much care, so much obvious effort into creating this that I would think people can't help but remember it.
Yeah.
It would be personal. You know, when you wear your T-shirt, you would talk about the packaging. I know I do from when I saw you deliver to Greg for his grilled cheese T-shirt. I mean, it really is very, very memorable, and you're likely to get that kind of loyalty and repeat business as a result, I would think.
And not only that, and I know we're totally at the end of our time, and I like to ramble, but not only that, and this is such a big deal. What you just described, Biggie, is when you're creating a brand, you're creating something that's more than a logo. It's more than a design. It's a story. It's an experience, and so your brand is how you take all the elements of what you do and synthesize them in a way so that everything reaffirms your brand identity. And what you've done is you've taken, okay, how do I think through this and create Deli Fresh Threads? I want to have T-shirts that provide a deli experience and reaffirm my passion for sandwiches. So what do? We include the deli type of language that we use. Even your fonting is the type of things you see in your old classic delis. Your T-shirts affirm certain types of sandwiches, and when you package them, the packaging represents the type of sandwiches, and your brand logo on them represents the type of deli stickers that you see on these things. And so you have created a uniform experience all the way across the board that reaffirms a central brand that creates a deli experience in a T-shirt medium. And that's so critical for people that are trying to develop their own brands to catch on to, is that a brand is not a logo. A brand is a story, it's an experience, and it pervades everything that you do, and if you do it well, people talk about it, which is why people are talking about what you're doing at such a significant level.
Amen to that, because it's very true what you're saying when it comes to that. And then, Carolyn, you had mentioned about my Sandwich City series. The premise of Sandwich City was I love sports and I love sandwiches, and cities are known for their sandwiches. So I basically blended them together to make my own, because a lot of people, what they do, what brands do, is they do logo flips, and they just put their name on a logo flip. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make it where you can actually barely even know that it's my brand unless you look at the deli tag inside the shirt. But it's basically set up where, like New York, I did like a New York one. It's pastrami on rye, a Cuban for the Miami area, and I then picked the team that I felt correlated for that best for that city, and I used that together. And that's kind of one of the big things. And I'm also a Red Sox fan, so I know I needed to have, you know, kind of I wanted to wear something that kind of be able to let me wear my team and at the same time wear me. So that was one of the reasons why I was like Boston, Chicago. I actually have an LA shirt. The only thing about LA is the team I picked is really, really bad, and I'm not sure how many people will believe that the French dip is the sandwich that's known in LA. It was actually invented in LA.
Huh. I never would have known that. Fun facts.
You sound like a subject matter expert.
That's what I'm trying to be.
And I have to say, you are Big. It's just been so much fun to have you on the show. Thank you for coming. As we wrap up here, just for fun, let's everybody say, of course, where we can find you online, your social profiles and websites, and so on. And let's also, I'm going to ask you what's your favorite sandwich to the other folks on the panel, since I've already disclosed mine. So Thomas, we'll start with you.
You froze up. Who did you send it over to?
You.
Me? Okay. Well, hello, my name is Thomas E. Hanna. You can find me at blogphoto.tv. My favorite sandwich is, it's going to be a roast beef with mayonnaise, provolone cheese, and a little bit of horseradish on a multi-grain bread. So that is my favorite sandwich. Thank you for all of you folks who were here. We've got a great audience. I've seen Eileen. I've seen Jen Vargas. Jen, I loved your presentation at FL BlogCon. I'm glad to see you're here at the show. Roxanne Davenport, some fantastic people on here. Guys, if you are not following Eileen and Jen Vargas, you need to catch up with what they're doing, because they've got some amazing stuff. And thank you, Biggie, for being on this show. This has been a blast. So back to you, Carolyn.
All right, I'm going to pass it right to Rob.
Sure. So I'm Rob. You can find me at robertryan.ie. And this is the tough question. So my favorite sandwich, well, as of late, because I'm a bit of a sandwich aficionado, and I'm sure you know, Biggie, we go through phases, don't we? But one of my current favorite sandwich, anyways, it's got to be a triple decker. You know, 2 slices of bread. It's only Mickey Mouse stuff. So 3 slices of bread. We need to have bacon. Got to be nicely baked and crispy. Then we need some sweet chili sauce, sliced avocado, sliced and diced red onion, a little bit of iceberg lettuce, nice and crispy. We want to have some mayonnaise on the top decking, grill the cheese ever so slightly, flip around, slice it in 3, and enjoy. That would be my favorite sandwich, approximately, at this moment in time, at least. But I would also like to say,
like a Cuban.
But I'd also like to say, you might have seen me nodding here like a dog in the back of a car. And you know, you got a glowing review from Thomas, but you're knocking it out of the park in a big way, Biggie. So I would say keep it up, man, and I wish you all the very best and a whole lot of success, because t-shirts are cool, and small independent businesses doing what they love is what it's all about. We don't have to work for the man. Viva la t-shirt.
Amen. All right, Biggie, give us your contact info.
Well, I want to thank you all first for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it. And if anyone is interested, a little plug, you can use the code SANDWICH, and you can get 15% off the site. And you can use that. And by all means, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Deli Fresh Threads. However, thanks to Twitter being too long, my threads is actually THRDS. So Deli Fresh Threads, or you can just go to delifreshthreads.com, and you can see all my social media links. I'm pretty much on everything. I'm more active probably on Instagram and also on Twitter and Facebook. Trying to do a little more Google Plus, thanks to Carolyn and Greg. And my favorite sandwich, it's kind of like a parent picking their kid. Like, they love them all. And there is really, but I will say that, Robert, you kind of were talking like food porn there. Like, I just need maybe Giada like making it for us, and I'd be like in heaven. But my favorite sandwich, I will tell you, my favorite sandwich is called the Chimu, and it doesn't really exist locally. It used to. It was done by a food truck. They try to recreate it somewhere else, but it's not the same thing. But it was a steak and chicken sandwich. And the interesting part is it was steak and chicken. It had an Asian slaw in it. And then it had mango barbecue sauce and sweet potato fries. And it was on like a Spanish Puerto Rican like loaf. So it was like a soft bread, but it kind of like hugged everything together. And it was like, and I call it full meal sandwiches, where basically you have like the side and you have everything in it. And it was all in one sandwich. And it was like, that to me is my favorite sandwich that I've ever had. And then locally, I would say you can never go wrong at like one of my favorite places, Pom Poms, or there's a variety of other places that you can go to, but like can't go wrong with like a Thanksgiving sandwich. I think it's really that theme. I kind of like the whole idea of everything kind of joining or getting sandwiched together into like one meal. I like that because that's the whole premise of why I like sandwiches. It's the easiness. You can eat it with 2 hands, you know, and all of that. So I think that's important.
No need to interrupt the game of poker either.
Oh man, well I think everyone on this panel and in the audience is now going to get up from this show and go make a sandwich or go buy a sandwich thanks to this conversation, and I have to admit I'm no exception. I am Carolyn Capern with CT Social, and it has been a real pleasure and a privilege to talk to my friend Biggie and to my other wonderful co-hosts. And I believe on our next episode of Blogging Warfare in 2 weeks, we will be joined by the great Mark Ensign, who was coming out with a cleverly titled book entitled Be a Dick. So we will be looking forward to that show in the future. And for now, in between now and then, happy blogging and happy sandwich eating. And we'll see you again soon.
Sayonara.